Well, hello, everybody. I'm here with Colleen,
Hello.
here with Danny,
Hi, everybody.
and we have a group of people that are here as well. We have about 22 other people that are here with us on our live Q&A episode of our podcast. So this is the episode where if you have any questions, you can come on and we can have conversations about your questions. We can answer your questions. There's ways to ask them publicly. There's ways to ask them anonymously. It's a really fun episode because we get into all kinds of interesting topics and interesting things about Reiki and other spiritual aspects. So we would love to have you join us. We usually try to make it like the second or third Wednesday of the month. You can always go to our calendar at reikilifestyle.com, and that shows you when our live Q&A episodes are. So with that said, I think what we'll do is we'll just say our few classes we have coming up. Let me just get those available so I can see, make sure I'm talking about them. I'm in a different spot on a different computer today, so I'm a little clunky in the way that I'm moving. So we have Animal Reiki 1 and 2, July 27th and 28th. That's with Colleen, myself, Sue Strong. Animal Reiki Master just after that. Colleen's teaching Reiki Master, Reiki 1 and 2 in August. And then we'll be heading to the Sedona Reiki Retreat over Labor Day weekend. Colleen's next Karuna class is in September. She only teaches that a couple times a year. So if you are interested in Karuna Reiki, certainly check that out. And then she will be teaching in Japan with William Rand on Mount Karama, teaching Reiki Master, Karuna Reiki Master, and you can look up those dates on reiki.org if you're interested in traveling to the birthplace of Yasui Reiki, where Yasui Sensei received Reiki on the mountain. You can go and check it out on reiki.org.
I missed
All right, I think.
Did you mention the Sedona Reiki retreat?
I did. It's over Labor Day weekend. Colleen and I will be there.
My brain was somewhere else.
Yeah. Also, what?
Shocker.
Yeah. Colleen's already moving into the invocation.
Yeah.
Also, if you do go to the Sedona Reiki retreat, come up and say hi to us. Also, if you're, a past student or things like that, come up and say hi to us. Let us know where we know you from or that you're a listener. We would just love to have those conversations. We sit with different people at lunch and talk to people and get to know you all. And it's just a really fun way to be in community with each other. And so we would love to know if you are a listener or been in our classes or things like that. Definitely come and join us or say hi or invite us to sit with you or all the things, because that's where we love to really get to know people. So I think that's it.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, should we go into the invocation?
Definitely.
Okay. So one of the qualifiers with the invocation is they can go very deep. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. If you are not in a position for the invocation to take you into a deeply relaxed Reiki state of mind and being, then listen to it later if you're driving or something like that. Sometimes you're doing things where you can just let it wash over you. So you don't always have to be in perfect stillness. You can walk with them. You can do gardening. I do housework with it, things like that. So I do them at those kinds of things. But if I'm chopping vegetables, maybe not, something like that. So
it's really interesting with those things, Colleen, that when you are, maybe like you said, you're on a walk and you let it wash over you. It's like a walking meditation, or I was going to say, if you're at the gym and watching yourself from before and after, and then those kinds of things where it's okay to have it wash over you, the state that you're like the flow state that you can really get into when you're listening and the different things that you might be doing. Like you said, as long as it's safe, but.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy it that way. And a walking meditation. And I like that it's also about my eyes open and having the energy flow through me in my doing this, particularly because I like doing this. And back when I first started in all of this work, there was just so much emphasis on just being. And I misunderstood what that meant. I thought that meant like I had to just not do anything, that's what being was. So I had to learn that that wasn't the meaning of it. It was a misinterpretation on my part. But I love the energy, especially when I'm walking, and just how everything just comes alive around me. All right. Well, speaking of which, I can feel it pulling me in right now. And so, Ali said that she's painting right now and loves to listen to invocations while she paints. Yeah, there you go. And Mary said, thank you for saying that. As often, I'm watching my school age kids, like now, at a park while listening. Yeah. All right, I can feel it pull me. So let's go ahead and close our eyes, take some deep. And place your hands comfortably on your body as you open your heart and receive. Receive the light and the power of love by every name it's called. Breathing in the power of love as it fills your breath, flows through your body, and reveals the power of love as the core of your being. It's the core of your consciousness. It's what your body is made of. Breathe deeply and receive. Power of love, power symbol, fills your breath and begins to envelop your entire body with light and the source of the energy of love, the higher frequencies of life force energy. And it's highlighting the places within you, your gifts, your talents, your abilities, your inner knowing. And the power of love, the power symbol, also flows into your breath and envelops those places where all of that can be hidden from your own view. The places where you feel limited, resistant, challenged, struggling. And lifts them from you, for you, carries them into the light where they can be healed, bringing to you clarity. What is true and the light of discernment from the higher perspective that the power symbol brings to you on your breath. And as you breathe in the light and the power of the divine mind from the source of pure consciousness. The divine mind fills your breath and awakens your divine mind, reveals it right here within you. And it awakens your authentic intuition, imagination, your instincts. Awakening your inner truth, your inner knowing, as the divine mind fills your breath and reveals your divine mind right here in your gut brain, your heart brain, your brain, head brain, all aligning, unified within you, your higher thought and higher consciousness. The light of the divine mind, the mental, emotional symbol, reveals your authentic intellect. As you breathe in the light and the power of the divine heart, the distance symbol. In the source of creation, you became self-aware in the divine heart and became your spirit. And the divine heart flows in on your breath and reveals your divine heart. It's right here within you. And it shines through your human heart, your heart light, shining in front of you, behind you. Your heart light shines on either side, above you, below you, and within you. And the light of the divine heart reveals your divine heart and your inner awareness of your inner truth. Your God spark awake within you, revealed to you. The light of the earth rises through you now. The light of the heavens shines through you. And the light of the earth within you is revealed. Your body is made of the earth, a treasure house for your great beaming light. And the light from the heavens fills your great beaming light within your body within your great beaming light. One light. And the light of the earth and the light of the heavens is one light within you. And you remember now the master symbol, Usui master symbol. And now you breathe in the light and the holy fire fills your breath and awakens your holy fire, your beautiful spirit revealed to you, shining through you. And you remember now that your divine spirit and your human spirit, your divine nature and your human nature are who you are right now at this moment in time on the journey of your soul, traveling through infinity of experiences, that you are here right now on the extraordinary planet called Earth. And all of its complexities, the duality of consciousness that is here, the duality of existence that is here. And you breathe in, and like the tree of life, your roots grow deeply into the earth, and you receive of the earth and communicate, commune with the earth with your roots. Your branches reaching to the heaven, receiving the blessings of the ancients on the four winds blowing through your branches, ancient knowledge and wisdom from the people, the trees, the animals, the waters, the stone, the air that you breathe, awakening within you your ancient knowledge from any time in your soul's history. Right here, right now, awake with the power of love and the divine mind and pure heart. You remember who you are. And divine compassion fills your breath. Zonar, Halu, Heart, Rama, Nosa, Yava, Shanti, Priya. Breathe deeply now and receive. As divine compassion fills your breath, and your perceptions expand all around you to the beautiful beings of the light that exist, the sacred and beloved ones of each of you, the enlightened ones of your heart, our brothers and sisters in the light, the ascended masters, the angels and archangels, and the divine animal kingdom and the spirit of the earth. And your perceptions expand as the light of beauty and the frequency of blessings fill your breath and your body. As you simply say yes to receiving the blessings from the small to the big, the beauty and joy and truth and grace and gratitude. And so you take this time and you say yes to receiving within you your own inner awareness, inner truth, inner authority, clarity of mind, clarity of solutions and resources, resourcefulness, awakening within you your higher consciousness, your higher thought, right here today in your daily life. As you remember, this is where you are right now. You're here in your life, in your body, as you, your personality, your beingness. And that light and power of love within you wakes up so you can see you and know you and love you. And the light of Reiki fills your breath and just begins to release any of those ways and worries of the world that can sometimes hide it all or make it seem dim around you, hard to see you. And it's very gentle and begins to lift any cords or connectors or layers, attachments, anything that hides you from you. Seems to dim your light because you can see how extraordinary and beautiful you are. And so you breathe in the light, and the light fills your breath, and it fills you with your sovereignty, fills you with your truth, your gifts, your brilliance, your glory. Right now, today, in your life, in this moment. So look inside and say thank you to you. Reiki helps you hear you and hear yourself. Listen to yourself. and apply it to your daily life and all of the different circumstances in which you find yourself. Clarity of mind, higher thought, inner awareness. We say thank you to each other. The circle is always divinely ordered. All who are here today live and those who listen later. Such a beautiful community of people caring about contributing to wellness, each in our own lives, our loved ones, our communities, the people, the animals, the planet itself. So we say thank you to each other. We say thank you to the enlightened ones that have joined us in the frequencies of Reiki and life force and vitality that fills our breath. Say thank you to this whole community. And thank you to the teachers who have come before us to bring us these ways. Thank you to the descendants who come after. Open your heart now and simply receive. Thank you. And so it is. Okay, well, I always come back quickly from those because we're still recording. So for those who are listening, all of you who are here live, just take your time coming back. Yes, you're welcome, Patty. Thank you. Well, Robyn, do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, I think so. We will get started with Margaret Mary. I think you're up first. Unless you would like me to read your questions.
No, just needed to unmute and trying to find that button after the invocation. I was invited to a soul or spirit regression event, and thus this question, in the context of Reiki, what are the distinctions between a soul regression and a soul retrieval? And that's the first question. And the second question is, when working with a client, what does a client need to do to prepare to receive Reiki? Is that something we guide them through, or, whatever that looks like? Thank you.
I hesitate to answer the question with soul regression and soul retrieval because I'm not that familiar with soul regression. Also, they can have different meanings based on the people who are using a variety of techniques. I'm more experienced, of course, I'm very experienced with soul retrieval and understand it better. So I think I'd have to, can you give me just even a little bit about what you experienced in soul regression and see?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't participate because I had that same question. I had some uncertainty. And before I looked at the recording or did anything, as always, I defer to my masters. Since I've been studying with you for 4 years, I I didn't know what the energy was, and I don't know anything about it. So, I mean, I know the spirit reveal technique, which you have shared.
Yeah. They're
And
probably
talk.
just different, different techniques, and soul regression. I just don't, to be honest, I just don't know. I'd have to look up more about soul regression and see what the standard idea is around it. Just from off the top of my head, they sound like two different techniques. And what I hear as much as anything with your question was your discernment about whether you wanted to participate in another modality and what was kind of the safety around that, or we're just like, should I, shouldn't I? So the first thing is that I think discernment is really healthy. And, whether it's discernment over something we're doing or somebody else is doing, I'm always in a state of discernment when I am in energy work or, other people's modalities, or also even within Reiki. Like I stay in a place of discernment. At the same time, I do like to try other things and varieties of things. So when I go into something, the main thing that I do, and again, is regardless of who I'm with, if I do ceremony, say with William Rand, I would still take care of myself in the same way, even though I've known him for years and we work together. So regardless of that, Jan Inglesmith, my shamanic teacher, those ceremonies, when I'm in other ceremonies or other trainings, I always take care of myself. So step one is the discernment that you just used. Ask Reiki, ask somebody else. Discernment around who's actually doing the work. Do I resonate with them? And then if I decide to go ahead, because I do like to explore, if I decide to go ahead, then I just do my preparations. And what I mean by that is similarly to preparations in a Reiki session, I place Reiki all the way around me. I invite my guides, and I'm clear that I'm in a state of listening and also instructing the energy and my guides to take care of any kind of frequencies that are less than what I would want to be in. And so I use that technique, and to do that is really, like the invocation we just did is a longer version of it, and it's verbalized, but essentially I'm bringing in the Reiki energies. And so let's say I'm doing it on the fly. I might think, okay, Reiki, I may think each symbol, or I may think Reiki as one group, or I may use, say, for instance, I work with Holy Fire a lot, so I might just invite Holy Fire in. And I actually intend it to create a bubble of light around me and with my guides helping with that discernment process. So most of the time, I feel completely safe doing things that way. But I'm also staying in that place of listening and discerning. And a lot of it is I do pay attention prior to choosing something and make sure I resonate with whoever it is that's doing the work, because that's the other piece of it. But at the same time, I don't really usually feel like a fear of trying things. But I do exactly what you just did, is question it, and discernment, and however that takes me. And the other thing is trust. When you think, you know what, I'm going to wait to do this till I ask somebody else. Like, trust yourself to follow your guidance. And if your guidance was like, oh yeah, I feel good, I'm going to do my Reiki stuff around me, and I'm going in, and this is going to be great. then you follow that guidance. So yeah, I think it's, it's all of the above. It's that state of listening and paying attention to your own energy and using that discernment. So, does that answer that question?
It does, and thank you very much, because at a certain point while you were responding, I don't fully recall what you were saying, but all of a sudden I wanted to regurgitate, and that's often my physiological gut brain sign of, yeah, you're on the money, get out of here. So thank you for all of that. And the only reason I even considered the regression is I recall a few times in the various courses with William that, when he talks about his experience and his history and talks about himself, he mentions that. And so I considered it, but thank you for letting me know that, as you said, the discernment, and I'm on the money. So thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, I just popped it up to see what it's, so this is soul regression is also like a past life regression. Is that what you're thinking with it?
Yes, that was
Okay.
somewhere in the description of what they were talking about. And for me, it really was straight up. I couldn't receive clarity on the energy. And so I just waited.
Yeah. I know a lot of people, if it's what I think it is now, I just took a moment to pop it into my browser and see what it is. If it's what I think it is, I know a lot of people enjoy it and are successful. The secondary piece of that is there's one part of it is you're assessing the technique, but then you're also assessing who is delivering the technique. And so, and if there's a resonance with either and both. And so that's the other piece of it that you're looking at it. But past life regression, I've definitely had it. Again, I'm not an expert in it. I don't know a lot about it. I do support it for those listening that have had it, and it's been really helpful. When we do the past life work in Reiki, it definitely has a different quality to it that I'm aware of, because in past life regression, in my experience, I've had it a couple of times, then from that context, tells me where I was, who I was, what the experiences of that lifetime is or was. What I find in the past life healing that we do with Reiki is we can go into what lifetime experiences are affecting, or soul experiences affect this lifetime right now. And so you can even hear that in the invocation. A lot of times the words that I'll use is from any time in your soul's history, like the cords, the connectors, any injuries get lifted from you from any time in your soul's history. And so it's going to heal that part, but it's not so specifically about what was that lifetime, when was that lifetime, who were you, what happened. So it's not specifically about finding out more about that lifetime. It's more about releasing what happened in the lifetime so that you can move forward and be present here. The other thing that has really shown up in the past life healing that we've been doing is, as you mentioned, the spirit reveal technique. What that does is goes into your past lives of, like, sometime we've had past lives of mastery, and maybe not just spiritual mastery. Maybe we've had past lives. Like I've had some where, they were an extraordinary farmer for their village. Like they were the person who was able to predict when to plant, when to harvest, what to plant, how to feed the people, and mastery with that. Or I have, of course, had many people with spiritual mastery. It's also shown the peace that you can feel of just living an ordinary life of contentment. So some of them, they're not always like these big, extraordinary lives. Sometimes it's just, oh, give me that lifetime of peace, contentment, ease. And, that energy comes back. So that's the other thing that we see in the past life work that we're doing. And the way Reiki does that is it's actually waking up the cellular memory within you of those lifetimes of wellness, skill, knowledge, mastery. And they're not always earthly lifetimes and they're not always human lifetimes. So we bring a soul's compilation of the information back with us. And that soul's knowledge, and you can hear that in the invocation too, like how it wakes up that inner knowing, that inner awareness. And that can be from that soul's knowledge. So I again, going back to the two techniques, they're all, and soul retrieval, they're all different techniques, because soul retrieval is the concept that parts of us have fragmented through life experience in this lifetime, or also it can be in other lifetimes. And then the shaman is able to go and retrieve those fragmented pieces and bring them back and place them back into the body for wholeness. So all of them have a different function, and they have different techniques. And they also are typically working with a variety of energies. So with Reiki, we're working with Reiki energy. With soul retrieval, we can be working with a variety of energies, because it's more dependent on the spirit guides of the particular practitioner and who they work with to do that work. And that can be everything in the spiritual realms. Like one of the fairy doctrine classes that I took, I was learning how to do that work with, the enlightened fairies that I was working with. I also did that same work with other guides. Now it's I do all of my work with the Reiki energy. So they're different techniques, different energies, and they have a variety of results and benefits. So
Thank you.
and then your next question was, what do you do to prepare your client? And is there anything they should do? Some people really like to do a lot of preparation in advance, maybe with diet or however they're doing their work. I would say the majority of people that come in for a session are not typically doing advanced preparations. And I think there's many ways you can look at that as practitioners. I remember one practitioner I went to had me do all kinds of advanced preparations, and I was actually really sick during it. And it was like I was going to her because I was so sick. And it was a lot to do. And I remember at the time thinking, I don't feel good enough to do all these preparations. Like I need to just have somebody do some, help me, So I think you can do both, and that's not always true in every circumstance, of course. But for me, in that one, it was one of those discerning points for me as a practitioner, thinking I'm going to be careful with that, because a lot of times when people come to see us, they really aren't in a place to do a lot of preparations. At the same time, if they are, you can have preparations that you suggest for them that would benefit them if they want to do them. I guess I'm just not much of one to require it or to make them feel like if they don't do it, it won't be as valuable. So when a person actually comes in, the preparations that I do are kind of the standard activating Reiki within me, what I just explained about placing it all the way around me, activating my guides, inviting everything to be there. Typically, I draw the symbols over the client, or I sing or chant the symbols, particularly the Corona symbols, I can chant them. And I do the preparations that way because they get to just be where they're at. Sometimes they're going to have questions. Will, of course, had some conversation beforehand about why they're there and what their intentions are. But a lot of times people fall asleep or they just check out. And again, I know for myself, I'm always glad to, as the client, to not have a lot of requirements of me. Like, let me just go in and be in the session. So total choice by practitioner, though. So any of you that do have a particular way, I definitely want anyone to follow their own guidance about how they do that with their practice. So that's just my preference, but I'm definitely not saying to anybody that has people do preparations beforehand that they shouldn't. That's just my perspective. And each practitioner gets to listen in their own practice and decide what that looks like for them. So, Robyn, I see you shaking your head. Have things you want to add to either of those?
Well, with the soul regression and soul retrieval, you're much more of an expert at that than me, but I was going to add to this question is that there's a lot of practitioners that do have recommendations for before and after, even in some of the training that there's recommendations for before and after. I mean, just kind of how Colleen said, it's up to each practitioner. I'm the same as her, is that I don't really have any sort of set requirement around it unless somebody asks about it. Like, oh, is there anything that I can do to help me with this? But it doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say it doesn't necessarily make the session stronger. I think for some people that feel a greater connection to having maybe a discipline before or after or a practice before or after, it might help them to connect stronger to the Reiki session. But for those that don't find necessarily more connection through that, that it doesn't mean that the Reiki works stronger. It's just all about our preferences and what we like, and what we as people like. Just the same as Colleen and I say all the time, that in different lineages, you're going to find lineages like, for us, it's kind of Reiki your way. And then in other lineages, you're going to find lineages that have a more disciplined practice of like, no, this is exactly how you do it. And each person is called to each of their lineages and each of their Reiki styles and how it connects them best to the energy, what makes them feel within connected best within the energy. And for some of us, that's like Colleen said, I can't do all of that. I just have to show up. Like sometimes I just have to show up. And that is going to be for that person equally as effective as somebody who, as Colleen said, may eat a certain way before the session. I will say one thing that I find pretty universal is water. So drinking water before, but then especially after, I think most people find themselves pretty thirsty after. I also would just say that to have, client expectations, addressing some client expectations, such as, a lot of times you're going to feel in this like really blissful Zen place. And then, but there are some times that maybe later you can have a little bit of a headache or some of those symptoms that many of us have either experienced or have had enough clients to know that some people can experience. And the term for that is what's called like a healing crisis. I don't necessarily love that term just because crisis to me is very, doesn't necessarily encapsulate like you're just getting a little bit of a headache afterward, things like that. That to me isn't necessarily a crisis, but I do give that expectation so that if that does show up for a client, that doesn't be like, well, wait a second, where did this come from? And when those things happen, just to kind of define that a little bit, a lot of times that's going to clear by the next morning, right? Because what that's doing is that's just releasing. You're in a big process of spiritual detox, right? So you're releasing things so that you're making space for the new. But I also will say, if you can, not everybody has the capability of this, but if you can, then, maybe have a gentle day. Be gentle with yourself for the rest of the day. Some people have to come and get a session on their lunch break or something like that. So that's not always a reality for people. But if you're able to, can you make space for the day to just have an easy schedule, a gentle schedule to just allow it to integrate? Again, not a requirement, but it's nice. I know when I have sessions and I'm able to do that afterwards, to have some water, have a more gentle day, whatever that looks like for you. For some people, that's, chilling on the couch, reading a book. For some people, that's going to the gym or going for a walk. It depends on what that looks like for you and what that self-care looks like for you. So that's really dependent on what that looks like for you. And then for some practitioners and some people, having specific food requirements beforehand, food requirements afterward, that is going to be a connection for them. So that's going to help them. And I feel like as we say quite a bit, the right client is drawn to the right practitioner, the right student is drawn to the right teacher. Sometimes that takes a couple of people to kind of move through until you find the right one. But generally speaking, if that's something that is just that discipline is just, this is what I needed, this is what helps me the most, this is how I'm going to integrate, then that is right for you. And then for others, it is going to be a more maybe relaxed version of what that looks like for them. So, just listen for how you feel like that. It could be different for each client. Some clients would really like to have some rituals before and after. And if they would like some rituals before and after, that's certainly something that you can provide. And if not, that's okay. That's okay too. Because you will get that question from time to time for sure. Even if that's not, even like that's not necessarily a part of my practice. You will get that question from time to time. Like, is there anything that I can do? Sometimes I'll suggest journaling after a session, if they can go home and journal for different things that come up for them, things like that are, pretty kind of universal concepts with it. And other than water, I'm a huge water drinker though. I'm like a camel. So, well, wait, do camels not drink water or do they drink water? You would know this. Yeah, exactly. I'm a big water drinker. So for me, I will go through multiple glasses of water after a session. So other than that, I don't really have any huge requirements, but it's not to say that it's wrong if you do. And I just saw your chat. So go ahead.
Okay. Camels do drink water. They fill up and they keep it in their legs. Not their hump. Their hump is their food storage unit. And that's why you can see the camel's hump flop over after they have trekked through a desert. And there's a distinction. Do you want a regular camel or do you want a bricked camel? That's something else entirely. But yes, water is universal. All right, my follow-up in the last month, I have observed with myself that when I go to practice freedom, grace, and ease, I'm just so relaxed and it's awesome and I love it. And in the last month, I have observed in myself when I go to receive a session, I'm really present to the tension in my body. Like I am really tense, so I'm just like, I always tend to make my inauthentic, culturally created self is I'm doing something wrong. But I'm really aware of, am I actually receiving? Am I resisting receiving? Is that what the tension is? And I'm just looking to understand, where do I go from here? What do I do? Because I'm just that tension. I'm now, as I look back, that tension is underlying, and I was like, okay, you got to go.
Well, I think Colleen would probably have additional insights to this, but having known you quite a while, I think that healing and empowerment is, of course, a process. And you just even, first of all, I'll say Reiki works regardless of our experience, right? So that's something that we say often, but I know that's not your question, but I just wanted to have a caveat of that. As far as our experience as a practitioner, as far as our experience as a client, Reiki, one of the best things about it is that it works regardless of our experience. So I do want to say that first of all. But healing and empowerment, of course, is a process. It's a stair step, right? We're going to make progress, and then maybe we go down a step. We're going to make progress. Maybe we stay, at the same place for a minute. We make progress, and just the fact that you are in the place that you're looking at these things from this perspective, asking these questions, is also a sign of progress for where you're at, because we each have, as you were saying, such a level of culturally created selves. And when you've been through a lot, working through those layers can be either a longer time, a more intense amount of time, and you've got like the big things to work through until you can get down to those really those other layers underneath. And that's what you've been doing. And so to even be into the place of asking that type of question, to me, is such huge progress. And at the same time, it is because your questions years ago were different than that kind of question, right? And the things that you were working through years ago were even different than that kind of question. And looking at all of those kinds of things just actually shows a lot, so much healing and also empowerment in who you are, and really going into so much of your authentic self that I know that you've been working so hard at remembering, and that remembering for you. And this is also in a general sense as well for each of us, just that getting to that deeper level of remembering our authentic self, who we are in underneath it all. And so I think to just acknowledge too your progress around everything, and that goes for everybody. Acknowledging our progress, where we were before, and some of the questions we might have been asking before, and where we are today, and the questions that we might be asking today, especially when we've been working through really big stuff. And so I don't know what class it was that we were in Next Step last week, and my daughter, so I've gone through some pretty significant health things over the last couple of years. I'm pretty through it now, but when I was in that, one of the things that came through a session when I had with Colleen was a mantra that I held for quite a while. And if you're in Next Step, sorry, I'm repeating the story, but was quite a was that I held this for quite a while. And part of what had happened is I'd kind of lost my fire. And that turned back on in that session. And one of the things that came through when I was, automatic writing after the session was the mantra of fight like hell, and fight like hell to get through this. And for me, that's not necessarily going to be the right mantra for everybody, but for me, that was a mantra that I needed to get through what I was going through. And my version of success in that moment was to be healthy and thriving again. And I wasn't at the time. And when I was to the place where I felt I could let that go, I thought I had got rid of that Post-it. And I had it on my monitor. And I thought I had gotten rid of that Post-it. And my daughter was in my office last week or 2 weeks ago, and she found it. It was crumpled up. And it was probably by or, kind of behind my trash can. And she found it. She's like, what does this mean? And it was such a reminder of where I was then and where I am now, and in these cycles that we have in life with it all, and how I did really fight, and what that looks like, and what success consciousness looked like for me in that cycle of my life. And looking back on that, that time frame, it was such a reminder of like, oh yeah, this is where I was at that time. This is what I was going through at the time. This was the only thing that I could do at that time, was just fight to get through this time frame, fight to get myself back to a place of thriving. But it wasn't until I had seen this piece of paper that I realized how far I had come, and the things that I was addressing then versus the things that I'm addressing now. And so I know that your question is a little different than that. But at the same time, just this idea that there's these levels of questions that you're looking at right now, I just think is also kind of, there's a beautiful level to it as well. So Colleen, I'm sure you have additional.
Well, I like everything that you said, and of course, very personally for Margaret Mary, but also for everyone. In my experience with all the energy, we go through phases with it. And some of the phases we are having particular experiences. Other phases we're going through, something like the way you describe tension. And what I've learned to do is to observe it rather than evaluate it. And so at the same time, ask the kind of questions that you're asking. So for instance, I might ask it during Reiki at the time, and ask Reiki, like, what is this? Like, why am I feeling tension? I want this to alleviate the tension. And am I receiving it? Am I resisting it? Sometimes what I hear in myself is to move it into just say, yes, I receive it. And because sometimes it's just like you can't reason it or figure it out. It's just not that kind of a of whatever it is. And so I know that I can't like get to the it of it. And that's when I'll just invite Reiki. And you'll hear me say it all the time, and particularly in the invocations and guided journeys, where I'll just say, and so I say yes, and invite the Reiki energy and say yes to the energy. And then the clarity comes after the fact. It may not come in the moment. So like 3 days from now, you may have that insight that comes in, goes, oh, that's what that tension was about. Or, oh, the tension's finally gone. But sometimes it's also, when we have uncomfortable experiences with some of this work, it can make us really question it and discern with it, which is also important to ask and discern and to listen around it. But it's not always comfortable. And the discomfort can last, and it may have other influences in our life that have affected it. And then sometimes we'll notice like it's just now it's gone. But that might not be in that moment. It might be days later or a week later. And I also think that it's important when we're asking about it to like kind of discern, is this trying to tell me something? Is it my intuition speaking? Or do I just need to let it go? And again, that's sometimes the part I can't figure out. And so that's when I'll just say, okay, Reiki, like do your thing. And I move into really observing it. So you're doing all the things that you do and go through, your own empowerment and healing and everything else that you're doing. But I also think that's very general for everybody. We go through phases with it all.
Yeah. And also, if you're not connecting to it in the way that maybe you normally do, you can also look to see if you're connecting with it in other ways. Okay, so I'm not feeling it here, but is it connecting through me in different ways?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great question. So we have another one here. I was wondering about the benefits of retaking Reiki classes. I'm a master teacher, but felt betrayed by my teachers years ago and turned everything off. I want to return to a Reiki tribe. What would you recommend to continue? And let's see. They have completed the Karuna Reiki with a different teacher, and this community has helped in the last few months. So the question, Colleen, was how kind of recommending if you retake Reiki classes. Yes. So first of all, always yes. Even if you are not in the situation that you're in, people retake Reiki classes all the time. It's very common. And it is, something that you can just do for self-care, for kind of connecting to the energy, or if you're just feeling the call and you might not know why, you can take a Reiki class, and that is totally a common thing to do. You can also just redo attunements. So you can ask a practitioner or a master to have a session where you're just redoing an attunement. So that's another thing that you can do. And healing, asking for Reiki and asking for healing around the situations that might have occurred beforehand. Kind of letting go of those, which can of course be a process, but letting go of, those situations, asking Reiki to help to let go of those situations. So that is another helpful thing. But yeah, retaking Reiki classes is very normal, very common, especially in the situation that you're in. If you're feeling called to different teachers. Even some people are called to different lineages. And all of that's okay. Just really listening to your intuition, listening to your heart, listening to Reiki in what that looks like for you. Because there's the quote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That doesn't mean just that you are ready in like a certain level of training and now you're ready to bump up to the next training. That can also be a situation like this. Well, okay, I didn't resonate with what happened before, or I had a very bad experience with what happened before. And now I've been called to a different teacher. I've been called to a different community. I've been called to a different lineage. All of those things can be a part of the equation, and you can certainly retake classes through any of those aspects, whether it's a teacher or lineage, those kinds of things. So yeah, my short answer is absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with that too. There's always value in it. I think the difference would be requirement. Like there's no requirement that you should. Also, since you're already a Corona Reiki master and Reiki master, you can give yourself attunements too. What I also heard in your conversation is you're also looking for community. So this is a great community of people. Some of the ones that are here, Taylor usually puts in, how you can join some of her Reiki circles. Other people place, things in about attending their different Reiki circles and things like that. So there is community. And the nice thing with Reiki community is I just find globally Reiki communities are just really, nice people, kind, supportive, the things that you're looking for in a community. It's also really nice that we now have the availability of community online this way. That has opened up such a connection that, has really helped with creating community as well. The other thing, and I'm not saying this to be marketing, but the other thing that you may want to consider is our next step training classes that are run January from January through December every year. Those are amazing classes and training. And we'll of course be going more in depth into some of that information as we get closer to that time and registration and things. But those are monthly classes, and where, like you go through the same cohort. If you decide to do all 3 years, you're in the same cohort of people. You're in the same group class of people. All the students stay in the same day and time through the 3 years. The next step classes are actually 1-year classes, but there are 3 of them. And then we also have the Explore the 12 Heavens and Meet Your Spirit Guide classes. And those are also a year long from January through December. So it's just another place of both training, gaining experience. A lot of times what we had originally for our tagline on those classes was, you've taken a Reiki class, now what? Because Reiki compels us to want more, right? So, it's one of the reasons we do things the way we do them in our distance Reiki share that are free. And, it's like always trying to help with Reiki education, like how do we use it? How does it make a difference? And how do we apply it in our daily life? So that part of it too. But the training in the next step classes, we've been doing it for quite a while now, 8 years. And the results are really amazing for people. So I'll just say that too. That's a possibility. And if anybody is listening and wondering how you find out about that, it's all on our website, reikilifestyle.com, and you just go to the advanced training. When it says advanced training, you do not have to be advanced with Reiki. The training is another level of training. It's working with Reiki journey techniques, the spirit reveal technique that we talked about with Margaret Mary earlier, and then also channeling. But those are all three. That's like the very big summary of what the 3 years are about. But it's very detailed on our website too. And then of course we always have our distance Reiki share, that those are every week. The other place you can do too is, we have our YouTube channels, and so and our podcast channel, so you can go back and look at those as well and participate in all of that as well. Retaking classes, I retake classes. I like even teaching classes. Every class is different, and I learn new things every time. So there's always value in it. At the same time, I never want people to feel like I'm saying, oh, you need to retake classes, because Reiki energy can, expand within you on your own too. That's possible. It's just, we like community, so that's the other part of it.
And Margaret Mary said that she reviews a Reiki course about every 6 months. So, yeah, she's been a Reiki master and current Reiki master for a while. So, and that's not uncommon.
Yeah. And I will say, I should add one more thing, again, not to be marketing, I don't mean it that way, but when you have taken Reiki classes from us, we do a reduced review fee. So like Reiki 1 and 2, Reiki Master, Corona Reiki, and Animal Reiki. That's another one if you haven't taken yet. You might want to take that. But when you've taken them from us, then you can also review them at a very reduced price. So.
Awesome. Okay. So this next question is, agreed. Sue said, I just love to review classes. I learn so much more and always heal something deeper. It's just time for us, right? It's time for yourself. And that's really nice. I had to review 1 and 2 for my licensed Reiki master teacher training. And so I did that in February, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I just get to sit here and I don't have to teach. I don't have to do anything. I just have to be in, do this. And as a busy mom, I don't get that much time to myself very often, but I was like, well, this is a requirement. I have to do it. So it was so fantastic.
I want to add one more thing again, now that I see Sue. Sue is here. So Sue Machado is in Brazil, and we are teaching a class in Portuguese online in September. So just wanted to mention that now that I see Sue here. I don't think we mentioned that in the announcements. So, there you are. If you don't speak, you don't pop up. So go ahead and unmute for a second and just say hi.
Hi, everyone. It will be great. We have in September this class in English and Portuguese, so we can be together in a global community, and this is so fun, and we heal a lot and learn much more with each other, so it's great.
I love it. Sue and I we just posted a podcast that Sue and I did again, another not a class, but kind of a meeting webinar for the people in Brazil in Portuguese. And we just posted that on our website, and it's in both English and Portuguese. So anyway, I have to add that. Oh, Em said that was an awesome webinar. Yeah.
I have a comment,
Go ahead,
Colleen.
Danny. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I've taken all of your Next Up classes for 8 years. I mean, I assist in some of the classes now, and every class I learn something different. And the reason is mostly because it's different people. Like in the assisting, I'm in different classes. And so each class brings something, new conversations. And you provide recordings after your classes, all your classes, your Reiki 1 and 2 and Animal Reiki and Reiki Master classes. And so I listen to those recordings to make sure they're okay. And they're different. I mean, because it's different people, different experiences, different conversations. So retaking a class can open up a whole new conversation or enlightenment.
Yeah.
Plus, it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah. All the questions that you get make the experience so much different. It's a great point, Danny. Okay. So the next question is, how many levels / degrees are in Reiki? So this is a great question because I would say when you first start out in Reiki, it can be a little confusing, or you hear different things and it can be a little confusing. So I really like this question. So the most common when you are in the Usui Reiki lineages is that you're going to have 3 levels or degrees of Reiki. So Reiki level 1 is also known as Shoden. Reiki level 2, hold on. Reiki level 2 can be known as Okuden, or, it's also called Okuden. So sometimes it's called that. Other times it's just called Reiki level 2. And then Reiki Master is Shinpiden. Or that can be level 3, Reiki level 3. So that is those are the kind of the basics when you're talking about Usui Reiki. And that is what you will hear the most in Usui Reiki lineages. So if you see those, like especially the Japanese names for them, Shoden, Okuden, and Shinpiden, that is what that means. However, in other lineage, there's a few caveats to this. So in the lineage that we are in, Usui Holy Fire, there's Reiki level 1, Reiki level 2, and Reiki Master. So Reiki Master is the same thing as Reiki level 3 or Shinpiden. And so a lot of times teachers are going to teach Reiki level 1 and 2 together. So that is common, like in our lineage. That's what Colleen and I do, is we teach Reiki level 1 and 2 over a 2-day period. Other times people are going to teach just Reiki level 1. There's a time period until you take Reiki level 2. So while you take Reiki level 1, which is Shoden, and Reiki level 2 might come down the road, which is the Okuden. So that is, I would say, the most common things that you're going to find. Again, many times for Reiki level 3, it's called Reiki level, it's Reiki Master. And so you'll hear that as the terms are generally interchangeable, as Reiki level 3 and Reiki Master, to simplify it. Because I know, again, it can be a little confusing, especially when you are first starting out Reiki. Even after a little while of Reiki, can be like, okay, wait, I call it Reiki Master. Is that Reiki level 3? Or you can have that vice versa. Wait, I took Reiki level 3. Is that the same as Reiki Master? So essentially, yes, for simplification of it. And there's different things that you learn in each level. So, Reiki level 1 is where you're attuned to Reiki. Reiki level 2 is where you learn the symbols. This is generally speaking, like I said, there's caveats to this. We'll get to in a minute. Reiki level 2 is, where you're learning the symbols and distance Reiki. And then Reiki Master is where you're receiving the master symbol. In most lineages, in Usui lineages, and also you were learning to teach Reiki and give Reiki to others. So that's kind of the differences between the 3. Now, in some lineages, those are the Reiki classes that they teach. And then there's in other lineages where they might have additional Reiki classes and even additional Reiki levels and additional Reiki attunements. So in our Holy Fire lineage, which is, it's Yusui Holy Fire through the master level. So that's level 3. And then we also teach an additional class that was created by William Rand, which is called Holy Fire Karuna Reiki Master. So that is an additional course after you've taken Reiki level 3, the Yusui Reiki levels, which is, through Yusui Reiki. And then Karuna Reiki is another class. So you can become attuned to the energy of Karuna Reiki, Holy Fire Karuna Reiki, and receive those additional symbols, receive that additional energy. So that's another thing that you might hear pretty commonly, is that people might be attuned to Karuna Reiki. There are also other, especially if you're joining our circles, you'll hear that. There are also other lineages that have a lot more attunement processes. So the kind of additional question with this is that I heard a Reiki master say that he was a 7th degree master. And so in other lineages, they might have different ways that they do the attunement process, different ways that they do different levels of the Reiki teaching and Reiki energy. Just as in this lineage, we have Karuna Reiki as an additional attunement process, an additional course, an additional energy. It's all Reiki energy, so it all comes from Reiki energy. But when you have, you might have those additional courses and symbols that you can learn. And then like in our lineage, or it doesn't have to be in our lineage, but many people do animal Reiki. So they learn animal Reiki in the ICRT animal Reiki lineage. You are attuned to another symbol. You're tuned to additional aspect of Reiki energy that is to assist in giving Reiki to animals. So there is, Reiki energy was always meant to be shared, developed, all of these kinds of things. So that's why you'll see differences in different Reiki lineages and in different parts of the world. There's ones that are more common than others, but the Yusui Reiki lineage is the level 1, level 2, level 3. And you will have some that are, that stick to a very traditional practice of that. And then there are other lineages that also combine kind of the Western and the Eastern aspects of the Yusui Reiki, which is kind of where you get like the Holy Fire Reiki energy course techniques, things like that. So there's that. And so this person saying that is from a different lineage and has additional trainings that they might do in that lineage. And then there are other things that you can do with the Reiki energy. So that's like when we're talking about traditional Reiki classes, that is the generalized. We can't say to all of the different options in the world, as far as like all the different lineages that there are, all the different techniques that people teach, things like that, because there are a lot of them. So just the biggest understanding around it is that there are different lineages that practice it in different ways. But then there's also additional things that people might do with Reiki energy. So as Colleen was just saying earlier, for example, we teach Next Step Reiki, which is learning additional techniques that we use Reiki energy to help us with, such as like Reiki journey techniques. So we use the shamanic journeying techniques, but we use the Reiki energy to do that work. So it is slightly different, which is why we call it Reiki journey techniques, because we're using the Reiki energy to do that. And so the Next Step Reiki goes through those processes and how we can use the Reiki energy to learn additional tools and techniques. So I use that as an example because there are other people that do that There's other, classes out there that people are using the Reiki energy to combine them with additional techniques that they might have learned. Some people, create their own Reiki lineages. Some people create their own techniques when it comes into the Reiki energy. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. And so this person that is a 7th degree master is probably just from a different lineage that has created additional tools and techniques and additional courses or things like that. Any additions to that, Colleen?
I think that was very complete.
All right. Okay. I'm just looking this. Oh, just put, for me, animal Reiki helped heal a lot of trauma. Often when we experience trauma or have chronic pain, we don't want to ground in our body because our body doesn't feel nice. Animal Reiki felt like coming home to my soul. So safe and held. Yeah. I did want to say that during that, Jess, is that yes, we use it for animals, but it's very much for people too, especially that tree of life Reiki energy. I just didn't want to continue expanding on that when I was answering that question, but totally agree with you. The animal Reiki is for people as much as it is for animals, so that we can heal, more animals, the earth. All right. Well, I think that is our list of questions for today. So unless somebody has a follow-up question or any additional questions that before we sign off.
Okay, here it is. What do you think about focus? What do you think about and focus on when you're giving Reiki, both in person and distance? Is there a mantra or affirmation you say? Do you just let things flow and or something else? So I think the first thing to know is that Reiki isn't dependent on you as the practitioner being focused. It does the work regardless of where your mind is or goes. At the same time, for me as a practitioner, I really like the focus that Reiki provides as both the practitioner and as the client. And I do think it changes the experience for me. And I don't know that it changes the experience for the client unless you're talking or doing something that changes their experience. So that's the first thing to understand. And one of the really amazing qualities of Reiki energy is that it isn't dependent on our ability to stay focused, give it the right intention, push the energy in, know what it's doing, know what symbols to use, all of those things. But it changes our experience as a practitioner. And so for me, it is highly valuable to be in that focus and the Reiki energy. Sometimes the focus does take me into stillness. Sometimes it takes me into, the Reiki journeys that we do in our sessions will take us into the observation of how Reiki is doing the healing. Some of you may call that insights or impressions that you get, or psychic impressions. A lot of different terms it's called, which is, what we're trying to do is teach you in the next step classes how to get really skilled at that. Other times I can be in a session and I am thinking about the symbols and I am focusing on the symbols, inviting them in to help me focus. Sometimes I've been in mind chatter during a session, and I will tell you, one of the things that I notice when I'm in mind chatter during a session is whether or not my client is in mind chatter and I'm actually picking up theirs, even though it seems like me. And so I will just ask Reiki. I feel like I'll try to pull myself back. So this is metaphorical, but in my mind's eye, I think of myself as pulling myself back, and I think of get out of the way, so that I can listen for what is going on for them or whether it's me. And sometimes the mind busyness, maybe it's not even mind chatter or mind wandering or suddenly thinking about, well, what do I need to get from the grocery store? What about tomorrow? What just happened yesterday? All of those things can be normal, and it's somewhat similar to meditation, where you just let them wash through and go by. Maybe you notice them, but what I've learned to do is when I notice that my mind has wandered, is that I'll notice it, let it intentionally just go by, and I don't follow the thought. And by following the thought, what I mean with that is I don't continue the thought. I don't question it unless it's relevant to the session, or actually sometimes it is relevant and is important for me to track. So you can ask that question in the session, and it can be unique for each person and practitioner and how you like to do things. I will go to the symbols, like I think about them. If I'm struggling to keep my mind focused. But I also, sometimes it might take me, like I've been doing Reiki on my husband a lot, and I've noticed, particularly because I'm, working on somebody I know, that I can definitely have more distractions of my own thoughts. And so I've also noticed that it maybe takes me like 10 minutes before my focus settles in. And I've just learned to be okay with it. Like I don't struggle with it or feel badly that, whoa, I'm not focused. And it is helpful to understand that Reiki is not dependent on that. It does the work regardless of where we are at, but it does change our own experience. And for the quantity of Reiki that I do, I actually want to be in the Reiki mindset more than I want to be in my own mind chatter and the different random things that I think about in the course of thinking about things in an hour-long session. So it does vary. And it is also what I've also experienced in my own self is over time, I've become more skilled at staying focused and being focused. And again, because that's my preference. If I'm going to be doing this all day, every day, I really like the place that Reiki takes me to, rather than just being in my own mind the whole time. So, Robyn or Danny, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's good. The only thing I would say is, like, since you were saying mantras, is the Reiki ideals.
Yes, thank you.
That would be you could do those mantras.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Robyn, can I ask you a question? I'm in the car, just to follow up, because I learned Reiki in a developmental time with Reiki. I started out with 2 and 3, and then my next course was just really learning DKM, and I think at the time just the fire serpent. Then when I went to study with William Rand, we learned to be Reiki masters. At that time, I learned Karuna Reiki symbols then. And then Holy Fire came after that, so I had to go back to take Holy Fire Karuna Reiki. So it was a whole different series. So I want to understand you straight now. Reiki 3, at this point, you are introducing DKM and the Holy Fire symbol, and that makes a person a master in Reiki 3. Did I understand you correctly? And then Karuna comes after that. Is that what you're saying?
I think the short answer, Joe, is yes to your question. However, Reiki 3 in most lineages aren't going to teach the Holy Fire symbol. There's going to be differences in the traditional than the Holy Fire Reiki master course,
Mhm.
then it's just a generalized comparison. So there's of course differences in it, but it's a generalized comparison. So yes, that's essentially it. You're the Reiki master, you're learning to teach. Yeah. So there's nuances within that. But I know it can be confusing to be like, okay, wait, Reiki 3, Reiki master, and then you get the Japanese names of those in like Shimpiden, like, wait, which is which? And so just to kind of generalize the parallels between them. That is Reiki level 3 is Reiki master. And then yes,
thank you. I appreciate that.
Karuna, you learn the master symbol in the DKM symbol in Reiki Master and Holy Fire Reiki Master. You learn the DKM symbol and the Holy Fire symbol. And then in Karuna, depending on where you come in from Karuna, because you might have also, if you come in from a different lineage, it can be a slightly different experience because you're also attuned to the master symbol. With Karuna Reiki, you learn the additional symbols in Karuna.
And so
Reiki.
when using that Holy Fire symbol with the DKM, at that point, the student is able to be a Reiki master using the Holy Fire ignition technique. Is that right?
In Karuna?
No. In the Reiki 3, where you're teaching DKM and the Holy Fire symbol, at that point, the student can now do ignitions, right? And teach Reiki that way to others.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think
Okay,
I
good.
would just add some clarification, going back a little bit to the history that can help with the clarification of that. So in the Reiki Alliance, Mrs. Takata's teachings, there were different levels of Reiki mastership. So there was Reiki practitioner, Reiki master practitioner, and Reiki master. So it used to be Reiki 1, Reiki 2, Reiki 3A, and 3B. So people would take the 3A and they would receive the DKM master symbol, but they were not qualified to teach until they took 3B. In the Holy Fire lineage and in the Usui Tibetan lineages that William founded, they have always been called Reiki Master. So in the original Usui Tibetan tradition, the Reiki Master, you could take, again, Reiki 3, and then you could take the Reiki Master class with two different sets of symbols and two different levels of practice. One was a practitioner, one became a teacher. In the Holy Fire lineage, we only have the Reiki Master class. And so when you take the Holy Fire Master class, you now receive the DKM, the Usui Master symbol, and you receive the Holy Fire Master symbol. And that does empower you to teach and give attunements or ignitions with Holy Fire. So we no longer break that up. The same with the Karuna class. In the original Karuna training, there was a Karuna practitioner class that was different than the master class. And there was a Karuna master class. So there were two. In the Holy Fire lineage, the Holy Fire Karuna Reiki is always a master class. So you will always be able to practice it and teach it. And not necessarily, you don't always have to teach. You will also be able to pass on the attunements or the ignition. So a lot of it comes down to the lineages. Yeah, I don't know if I made it more confusing.
all the nuances, but I didn't know that about the A and B. That's
Yeah,
and
it
then
used to be.
before, was it like that's what you're saying about ART master? So
Yes.
you might have had the 2 days where you become the master, and then the ART was the teaching.
Yeah, so the Usui Tibetan, thank you, that's clarifying too. The Usui Tibetan lineage has the ART or Advanced Reiki Training class, which is a 1-day class. And then it has a master class that's a 2-day class. And so you can take one, you can take the ART, or like I always taught it as ART master. So I always still taught all three, or, both of them together, but they can be taught separately. And then, yes, in the Reiki Alliance Mysticata traditions, with where the Usui symbol, master symbol, is the master symbol, you could take it in 3A, and then 3B was the teacher training class. So that's why you see the different ones. So really what it comes down to is which lineage is calling it what, and what is taught in each of those levels. But Holy Fire is always a master class.
And that's why it was like, this is a general understanding of it, but there are nuances.
There are nuances for sure.
Yeah. So
and Jikiden Reiki lineage doesn't teach the Usui master symbol at all. So, that's what you were talking about too. So it's really varied by lineage.
Okay. And then one real quick last question is, and this is, kind of similar to our earlier conversation, is took Reiki Master in June and felt such deep spiritual experiences. And now I'm struggling to connect with Holy Fire. Thoughts and recommendations. I thought that was a good aspect to the question.
Well, again, we go through phases, and I know that we want it to always be in that phase of the depth of it, that internal depth that Reiki can take us to, those higher consciousness levels that we can be in, the feeling of them, the experience of it. And over time, what I have learned is I've had every experience, from feeling the depth of it to feeling very little with it. And I've learned to observe it rather than evaluate it, and notice it. Like, well, that's interesting. Look at, during this phase, it's showing up this way. Another example, for instance, is I went through almost a 2-year period. It's changed now, but where my hands were always cold in Reiki sessions. And so I'd question it, like, why are my hands always cold? It's like, just observe it and notice it, because the results were still the same. And so that can be one of the things that you really notice when you are in that place where it almost feels like it's paused, or the energy isn't, like you're not receiving it. Notice some of your results, because what can happen is you just simply notice things in your life either becoming more clear, maybe they're easier, maybe sometimes they're still hard, but you have more peace around it. So, and sometimes the results don't seem Reiki related at all. Sometimes the results are something that is entirely different than what you're thinking about with, your wellness or your spirituality. Maybe it's something about, well, I'm looking outside, I'm just looking at my yard. I mean, that's like kind of a random example, but sometimes the results are showing up in ways that are different, and that's why it's helpful to just observe your process. Because the process over time, because this is 25 years for me now, so I've been through all of it. The first step is I still continue to show up no matter what, because sometimes it's pure resistance. Like sometimes it's like, I just don't want to. And, so I continue to show up. I've been in the process where it's like, well, you know what? But come on, I want more. I'm looking, I'm asking for the answers. Where are the questions? What are, I'm in that place of like, it's just not all clear. But over time, the results are there. I just keep doing it. I invite Reiki. And when I'm still struggling with like, how am I feeling this? What's my experience? I still go back to that. I receive Reiki and I make it that simple because sometimes I need the simplicity of it more than I need anything else with it. It's like, just show me how it works in the ordinary. Show me how it works in the getting the right parking spot, the really basic daily things that we have to think about. And then also show me how it works in, maybe my resources that I need for health or, show me how to be calm in a difficult situation. All kinds of things like that you notice results, even though your experience may feel like not what you're hoping to feel in the moment. And it'll change. We go through cycles, we go through phases and cycles with it.
Yeah, it's interesting that this has actually been, I don't know if it's just it's just been common for me, but this question has been up right now.
Mhm.
So there's got to be something also. We talked about this a little earlier in a kind of a different way, but we talked about this a little earlier. And now, with your question, and I was just actually having this experience the other day where I'm not connecting with it in a super powerful way for me personally when I'm receiving. And as Colleen said, you learn to detach from that. So I'm not like judging it. And I know I just have faith and trust that it's still working. And that's new for me. I actually haven't been in a cycle where I don't just go really deep. However, I'm still feeling it deeply for my clients. And I've noticed that in a setting where I am in a position of having to kind of hold space, a lot of space for somebody in my personal life, I go really far out. Like I am almost kind of even in a walking state where I am very far, not in a bad way, in a connected way. And, I know that can be true for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but that hasn't always been there for me. And it occurred to me, and it's funny because Colleen actually said this in a session for me not too long ago, but it took a couple weeks for it to like actually click, is that you don't have to like worry about receiving or doing because you just are being Reiki. And people talk about that in times where they are in challenging times. And Teresa Bulch, she's not here today, but she's on here a lot. A lot of you know her, was talking about that recently for her. She's like, I just was Reiki. And so that's another thing to consider. If you have times where you're just, you feel maybe in that dreamy state, or you feel not maybe that you like, for me, I don't know how else to describe it other than kind of far out into the kind of enlightened consciousness. Check in with that. Check in with those things. Check in when you're on a walk. Check in to any sort of connection with the earth or in a relationship, or check in with that there, because in those cases you might be experiencing Reiki and it's just in a different way than what you expect. It's just in a different way than what we think should be how we are experiencing it. And like I said, Colleen said it, channeled it, and a couple of weeks ago, and it took me a while, and I'm like, oh. And then when I was conscious of it, I was like, well, this is kind of neat. And it's not all the time; it comes and goes. I'm like, this is awesome. So that's just another, kind of going back to the observing of it. And noticing maybe different ways that connection might be coming through for you. And it's just not when you're feeling it deeply here. It might just be when you're on a hike or sitting by a tree or looking out your window, and you can feel that switch in your body. You can feel it. And that too is the consciousness, the enlightened energy, the key, spiritually guided life force. I am the universe. The universe is me. Being able to connect into that consciousness in your walking life is also Reiki doing the work. Yeah. I feel the being Reiki a lot. Yeah. Yeah. People talk about that. And especially if you're in a time frame in a cycle that's challenging. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is our time for today then. Thank you all so much. Lots of love to you all. And if you need to get a hold of any of us, myself, Colleen, Danny, you can email us or go check out the website. And the social media, all that kind of stuff too. All right. Lots of love to you all. And thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.